On arrival at the refuge, after a long, tiring 2,500-mile flight from their breeding grounds in Alaska, Sandhill cranes focus on rest and food in the safe environment that the refuge provides. This dancing pair is happy that they are together, reunited and safe after that long migration which they do as a family. Cranes generally stay faithful to each other during their lifetime, which can be quite variable, living as long as 35 years in the extreme. You'll notice that the birds appear identical in plumage, which, indeed they are, sexes being quite indistinguishable. This is typical for bird species that are monogamous for life. Because there is no annual competition for a mate, the males don't need to be larger and more aggressive or adopt flashy plumage colors. Cranes, just like egrets, are very alert for danger, and so when one bird is preening, another one, in this case the partner, is ever watchful and ready to sound the alarm. However, more is going on here than simply avoiding predation. Birds also have to minimize energy usage, because energy requires more food. Unlike humans in our society, they do not have immediate access to plentiful food. Given that need to minimize energy, the birds prefer not to fly from danger, but rather, they typically walk to a safe distance which uses less energy than flying. This crane resting alone away from the main groups of cranes was maybe 100 yards away and therefore very safe, was yet ultra cautious and walked away immediately she saw me in the vicinity. The plumage of the Sandhill crane is basically plain gray, but is discolored because in the springtime they apply heavy amounts of oxidized iron-rich soil to their plumage for camouflage, thus staining it a drab brown to rich rufous color. The rather quaint so-called bustle is ruffled up and extended to make the bird appear bigger when competing for territory or to impress a female, or is just plain irritated with another crane in its personal space. The adult head from the base of the bill above the eyes to the back of the head comprises skin, sparsely covered with black hair-like bristles, which is colored red by blood flowing through it. When excited, the red skin can be extended and intensified further down the back of the head to signal a more impressive competitor or suitor. At hatching, that same area is covered with a salmon-colored down, followed by dark feathers as shown in the juvenile here, until it gradually recedes and becomes the adult blood-red signaling area by 2 to 3 years of age. At this time of the year, the waters are swarming with common green darner dragonfly pairs that are busily depositing eggs in vegetation just below the water's surface. As you see, the male holds the female's neck in a vice-like grip until she has laid the eggs. The male plays rough like this because if he simply fertilizes the female and leaves her to go off to lay them, another male will immediately capture her, scrape out the first male's semen, and fertilize her for himself. Dragonflies are beautiful with those rich colors and enormous composite eyes, but their procreation process is brutal. During this breeding stage and coupled up, dragonflies are open to predation, and this snowy egret is very willing to enjoy dragonfly lunch. The majestic great egret with that distinctive large yellow bill and yellow eyes rests for a moment to consider where the best foraging might be. Here among these succulent grasses might be a good place to find frogs and small rodents using that walk, stand and jab technique. Sharing space with a subtly colored white-fronted ibis is permissible, but there's limit to sharing. The ibis is typically foraging grass, water or mud for invertebrates, snails, earthworms, as well as frog, so its diet overlaps somewhat that of egrets and herons. So they may forage side by side sometimes, but the smaller birds respect the ranking of the larger birds, particularly the great blue heron. The white-faced ibis has very subtle plumage colors that scintillate and change depending on the angle and intensity of the light. That decurved bill is very effective when pressure sensors in the bill tip can locate invertebrates hidden in the mud. Getting the prey from the bill tip into the throat requires a rather clumsy-looking shape of the bill that throws the prey up and backwards. Well, it may appear clumsy, but it surely works. Another shorebird that comes here in hunters is the elegant black-necked stilt, the bird with the longest legs relative to body size. One of my favorites is the killdeer, so called because when calling it appears to be saying kill deer. This is one of those birds that breeds with an open nest in grasslands, and one of its trademark techniques of diverting predators is to feign a broken wing, thus tempting the predator. When safely far from the nest, the killdeer flies away to leave the predator empty-handed. She might well look around nervously because several northern harriers constantly patrol the refuge on the lookout for small birds, and very often you'll see a flock of birds erupt into the air because of a passing harrier. Wherever you find reed beds, there you're likely to find red-winged blackbirds, uttering their rather mournful call and showing their red epaulets even out of breeding season. They typically flock with other blackbirds during winter, and here's just one juvenile yellow-headed blackbird that probably was split off from its compatriots, perhaps by not paying attention, that ended up here for the winter. While the newly arrived northern shovelers rest contentedly, well away from the auto route, the bombastic little coots, who really don't like flying if they can avoid it, scamper across the water's surface and quickly drop back down. Sunset at Merced National Wildlife Refuge is always magical at this time of the year, as the sandhills come flocking into this wetland safe haven, chattering excitedly to each other with that romantic call as they come into land. But remember, there are many other species to see, including the ducks which will soon arrive.